Hello, Libra, and welcome to your 2019 energy forecast. I am Princess India. If you are new, if you are an old subscriber, hello again, my friends. So what we're going to do is a quick little general overview of the, major arcana. These are all major arcana. But we're going to look at the overall spiritual lesson for the year, subconscious influences, as well as things that will come into your awareness and any catalytic energies that you guys will be facing that will be helping in your overall growth. And then lastly, we're going to be looking at a message from Spirit. So we are going to ask Spirit to give us clear and direct guidance for Libras for 2019. Please, Spirit, anything that Libra needs to know, anything that will assist them in their personal growth and their highest good, anything that will help them to engage in optimism and hope going into 2019. And I ask that you give me the ability to interpret these messages in the clearest and most concise and direct way. And I thank you in advance, Spirit. And I elected to utilize just the major arcana because, of course, we know that the major arcana is all unavoidable spiritual lessons. So what better cards to use, right? So let's take a quick little look and see what's going on for my Libra people. And everything that you need to know is in the description box below. And as soon as I knock out these last 6 signs, then you guys' January reads will be coming up next. All right, let's see. So the spiritual lesson for the year is the Strength card. Your catalyst is the Devil. Your subconscious influence is the Well. And what's coming into your awareness is Judgment. Wonderful. So what it's looking like is for Libras in 2019, I think I bent my card there. In 2019, the key is going to be understanding the difference between yourself and your ego, right? Because there's totally a difference, right? And it's more or less you gaining dominion over the lower self. So the part of you that's very much concerned with, appearances or self-protection or just living in the moment in not a co-creation kind of way, but living in the moment in the sense of, having those lower ego id type of, needs met, right? It's you exacting self-control and understanding the bounds within which that would be executed. So trying not to make it super complicated, but it's more or less a level of self-awareness. And if you think about, if you've ever heard of like mood journals, it's kind of something along those lines. It's kind of tracking whether it's problems that arise or how you're responding when you're in crisis or how you're dealing with your emotions, if at all, if you're doing too much or too little of a thing. And I would say with the catalyst being the Devil, this is where you're going to find a great deal of what Spirit is kind of trying to bring to the forefront is the things that you're doing in excess, right? And understanding the reason why you're doing those things in excess. So it could be something as simple as complaining, right? So if you find yourself in a difficult situation, it's instead of exacting self-control, right? It's choosing to, let me take a back step. Let's say first and foremost, if we go back to what we were talking about with the mood journal, right? So if I find myself in a chaotic situation, and I was a Libra, and say that hypothetically, the way that I usually deal with chaos is complaining. I say how unfair it is, and this isn't right, and I didn't do anything wrong, and I don't understand why this is happening. And it's like you're thinking of worst case scenario. It's like this could lead to this, and then this person could say this, and what if they find out about this, right? It's first needing, which is why I backstep, it's first needing to identify that that's something that you're doing, right? It's needing to start to track your behavior. And even if you feel like there's nothing wrong, and I always say like your best friends, like someone you can trust, like say if it's something that your bestie always brings to your attention. So say they're like, hey, every single time, like, you could lose your car keys and you go into this whole, script of how everything is bad and so on and so forth, like disaster thinking in a sense, right? And you're like, I don't do that. But it's thinking about those things that you've had maybe several people tell you that aren't related to each other, that don't know each other, or those things that you yourself are aware of that you don't particularly care for. It's identifying those behaviors that you want to change, or those responses or defenses that you want to change. And it's taking the power back to where you're no longer at the will of your emotions or at the will of that defense mechanism. And it's you identifying each time you do it. So when you find yourself in a crisis, it's thinking like, even if you start, because I know like with me, when I was working through this process, it was so difficult for me because I had so many things. Like one of the things I used to say every time I would get frustrated, I would be like, oh my effing God, shoot me in the effing face, right? That was literally my response to everything. So it got to the point at the time, eons ago, I was working for the police department. Mind you, I'm working for the police department. I'm in an office. And it's like something frustrates me and I scream out, oh my effing God, shoot me in the effing face. Yeah, probably not the best thing to say in a professional setting. Mind you, got counseled in the office by my boss. You have to stop saying this. So my thing is, it's like, okay, when I start processing it, it's like, okay, this is frustration. And it's like, that's a deep level of frustration when you're literally like, shoot me in the face. Seriously, princess? So first, the thing I wanted to do was to process where that frustration was coming from. And after maybe about weeks or so of me sitting with that, I started to realize that this was things I was frustrated about and things in my life outside of the job. It's just that when something wasn't working on my computer, that was the trigger that allowed all of this frustration to come forth. And because at least I was wise enough to not flip tables and, break department equipment, it would come out in my verbiage that was reflective of the level of frustration I was experiencing. But at the time, it was something I didn't want to admit to myself. So all of that energy was coming out in that particular medium as a trigger, right? So the key is identifying things like that and kind of unraveling it. So with things like this, what was helpful for me was my iPhone notes. Like literally, I think I first got an iPhone in 2010. So that's been 8 years. I literally have my entire growth process in my iCloud in my notes. Like the different things I would think of, like, why am I so defensive? Why is it that when a person, if I'm at work and my boss is asking me a question, why is it that I instantly think that I'm in trouble even when I'm not? Why do I always get defensive and assume that I've done something wrong? And it's those things I got curious about and started to unwind, right? So that's pretty much the beginning framework of identifying these things that you want to change if you don't know. And following suit with the things that you are aware of. It's just that conscious action to choose differently. So going back to the example of if, you find yourself complaining when you find yourself in less than stellar situations, it's exerting that energy of the strength card, which is self-control, and saying, okay, I'm in a crisis. Here is where I start complaining. I start the reel of how everything is wrong in my life. But that's not who I want to be anymore. So what decision can I make in the opposing direction of this, right? How about I take a couple of breaths, I calm down, and I allow myself to get clear so that I can see how I can solve this problem, as opposed to being or allowing myself to be a victim of the problem, right? Now, with our catalyst being the devil energy for a great deal of Librans, The solution to this could be found in the things that you do in excess and the things that you are completely abstaining from. So say a person like myself, going back to my example, is how that frustration was getting triggered at work, but I was frustrated about other things that were going on in my life. It's like in those other facets of my life, I was abstaining. So I wasn't showing the frustration. I was smiling and saying, oh, everything's fine. I'm totally cool. No big deal. You know what I mean? But I was not totally fine. It was totally not a big deal, right? So it's looking at those two extremes that you find yourself in, because the goal is and I mean, I say this a lot of times because the big talk in the counseling community right now is screen addiction, video game addiction, right? And how it's affecting the neuroreceptors in the brain and how it's releasing dopamine. And the reason why we have to constantly look at Facebook is because it's now changing how the chemicals are functioning in our brain. So it's like in the event of a cell phone, it's like this is a tool that was created by the amazing Steve Jobs, rest in peace. I don't acknowledge Android. Sorry. I'm an Apple girl. Moving right along. So it's something that was created to be in service to humanity, to make our lives easier, to make it easier for us to connect with each other, to connect with people that we may not have the ability to see in person, so on and so forth, right? But when we lose control of an item, and it doesn't have to just be a cell phone, it could be anything. It could be food, it could be alcohol. Whenever we become in service to it and it is no longer in service to us is when you're borderlining on an addiction, because now it becomes a need. It's something that has to be fulfilled. I can't function without it. This could even be coffee. I'm sorry, people. I know it can be coffee. I know I'm addicted too. It's very difficult. Okay. Anyway. But it's anything that you are in service to where I cannot function if I don't blink, right? If I don't have a 5-hour energy, if I don't drink my coffee in the morning, you know what I mean? If I don't go to the gym, I mean, you could be addicted to the gym, but you know, it's if you feel that your life is completely out of sorts and you can't function without this thing. So these are going to be the catalysts, the things that more or less are going to be, how could I describe it? I want to use the word trigger, but it's going to be a deeper soul resonating trigger. So anytime you guys encounter things that you find that you may be addicted to, and I use that term lightly because of course you would never think I'm addicted to coffee, or we may joke about it, or Cokes or whatever. But the things that are going to start popping into your awareness are these rituals that you have, in a sense, where you feel that they have to be done. And if they're not, then your life is completely turned off balance, right? So that's going to be those brick walls that you're kind of hitting. And the purpose for that is Spirit teaching you guys how to execute self-control, right? So that you're more in dominion of your life and your experiences and the things you're engaging with, as opposed to being in service to them. So it's empowering you in the bigger scheme of things, right? So with your below energy, your subconscious influence being the well, this is more or less a call to, and this is not in the typical, these are my therapeutic tarot cards. But anyway, this is not in the regular, major arcana. But this card is talking about that, like the overall ethereal spiritual well, right? That is source energy, right? So it's the subconscious influence is more or less, and I've described this with other signs. If you've cross-watched, then you know. If you haven't, then I'll explain it for you really quickly. So in so many words, your subconscious influence is what it is that you're projecting into your reality. So that's pretty much the root or the program that's running in the background that is influencing your experiences in your external world. But of course, it's subconscious, so you aren't aware of it. So it's the thought that we're going through day to day and experiencing things, or experiencing things that are seemingly connected. Like, hypothetically, an example of this would be like if you feel like you keep dating the same person over and over again, that's a subconscious projection, because it's a lesson that Spirit is trying to teach you about the self. And until that lesson is learned and brought to the conscious awareness, you'll keep repeating the same pattern over and over again, right? So the whole pattern you guys are going to be repeating throughout 2019 are the things that are going to keep bringing you back to source. It's more or less understanding or making sense of your existential existence. And this came up for, was it Scorpio? I think this came up for Scorpio, which makes sense because if you're a Scorpio Libra cusp, totally makes sense. But it's a need, or does, yeah, that was Scorpio. A need, so you might want to go watch that if you're a Scorpio Libra cusp or if you have Scorpio in your chart. Moving right along. So anyway, the subconscious influence is going to be constantly bringing you guys back to the state of meaning, of wanting to have that foundation upon which you rest. So it's going to be a great deal of, by the end of the year, is more or less you guys having a deeper understanding of your spiritual belief system, and saying that in the sense of not necessarily aligning with a religion unless you feel, led to, but it's you crafting or cultivating your existential belief system. It's you coming in alignment with what it is that you believe life is about. You standing firm on your meaning of life and why it is that we're encountering the things that we're encountering. So this is pretty much the root of all of the challenges that you're facing this year, is for that to come to the forefront. So by the end of the year, you guys have crafted that belief system or become comfortable enough in that belief system, right? Now, with what's coming into your awareness is the Judgment card. So it's literally the great awakening to what I kind of just described here. It's you guys going down this path of like the 9 steps to awakening, so to speak. And some of you may have already begun this path, but the main theme of 2019 for you guys is ascending to higher and deeper understandings and awareness of what this overall journey is really about. So what it's looking like for Libra, and of course, this card represents, well, it does represent you guys. That's justice. Sorry, thinking scales. But anywho, this is more or less like a call to a higher state of being and awareness. And like I've said countless times so far, it's seating yourself in the director's chair of life. It's becoming that ever-present observer of your experiences as opposed to feeling at the will of your experiences. So overall, 2019 is going to be a very spiritual year for Libra. It's also going to be a very empowering year. So I think by the end of 2019 and you guys kind of looking back to this time, it's going to be like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? It's like so many light bulbs are going to go off this year. So many things that you've experienced that you never quite understood are going to come full circle. So it's more or less, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something non-corny to say, but I don't know. I just think it's beautiful. Okay. I'm not going to be extra cornball with it, but I think it's freaking beautiful. It's just, I don't know. It's like, if you think about, okay, if you've ever like been on vacation, like in a beach setting or something, and you go to stand on the balcony in the morning when the sun is rising, and it's like as the sun rises across this beautiful landscape, and it's just like, this right here, this is life. This is life. It's like that feeling. It's this euphoric, almost childlike wonder that you guys are going to be seeing life throughout this year. It's almost, I don't know, like waking up in your own life and seeing everything from new eyes in a way that is very euphoric and intoxicating, and feeling so liberated and so free and so empowered to be able to craft the life that you desire, right? So it was very hard for me to not be corny right there. I just said a lot of corny stuff. Don't judge me, Libra. Y'all love me. My brother's a Libra. So we're going to pull your message from Spirit, aka your meditative mantra for 2019. I'm just going to stop saying that these are like super existential, because all of the ones that all of the signs have gotten so far have been very creepy, like in alignment with what the energy was, right? But I would suggest that you guys write it down, because I feel like if you take these and read them, and I always say like 3 times to yourself and then sit in meditation, I feel like spirit will continue to unfold any additional messages for you. So this is a good little meditative little prompt going into 2019. So what message do you have for my Libras? Okay, and we got 2. That's awesome. So, first message says, all people are special and all moments are golden. There is no person and there is no time, one more special than the other. That's beautiful. So very true. It's like, what's that saying? I think it's in the Bible, where they say God is not a respecter of persons. It's so very true, because on a soul level, we're all equal. It's just humanity who has placed, labels and, caste systems and hierarchies on humanity for us to have the false sense that external things somehow make us better than others, or more desirable than others, or more worthy than others. But on a soul level, none of those things are true. We're all equal. We all come from the same source. And I think these are one of those universal truths that are going to become very clear to Libra this year, in a sense that this is going to be liberating for you. If you've ever felt the need to compete or to be better, to have more, to achieve more, it's knowing that none of those things will ever supplement for how it is that you feel about yourself, because you'll ultimately find when you climb the top of that staircase that it was a staircase to nowhere. So it's more or less knowing that your worth and value comes almost absent from any external, source of validation or accolade. It's all about your perception of yourself on a core level. And that's regardless of where you are in life. You know what I mean? We all come in this sucker the same way, and we all leave out this sucker the same way. You know what I mean? Next we have, I understand your fatigue. I know you are tired of the struggle. Yet I tell you this, when you follow me, the struggle disappears. Live in your God space, and the events become blessings, one and all. Oh, it's so freaking beautiful. Someone else got that card too, but that's your well card. This is more or less teaching you about resistance and resistance to flow, right? So this year, a huge part of this is about you guys aligning with the higher self, aligning with spirit, and entering the river of life. So it's doing nothing and accomplishing everything, which is, one of those spiritual metaphors. It's not to say to just sit around and not do anything, but it's more or less being so aligned that you're living your life by your inner GPS system. So, when you decide it's time to look for another job, you get that unction. So you start looking, but it's not really so much this, oh my gosh, I have to find another job, because it's in that spirit that we ultimately drive things away from us, right? Because when you're following your inner GPS, it's really easy. You know what I mean? Like if you're following, I can't say Siri because Siri be tripping sometimes, but my OnStar GPS is on point, okay? So if you think about the GPS in your car, and it's like before you get to the turn, unlike Siri, it's going to tell you to merge right. You know what I mean? So it's not a, oh my gosh, I need to turn here. Where am I going? What are we doing? It's knowing that you're driving and you have someone who has a higher perspective, an objective view of the overall journey that's telling you, merge right, turn left, make a U-turn, make a left here, make a right there. It's just as simple as that. And that is the place that Libra is entering within the self in 2019. So Libra, it has been a pleasure. That is your overall energies for the year and lessons and so on and so forth and whatnot or whatever. You guys, general January reads will be coming up next, so most certainly keep an eye out for that. But it has been a pleasure to read for you. Please let me know in the comments below what you think. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, dag nabbit, your auntie, grandma, whoever. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified when your January reads come out. But until the next time, my dear, I love your face. Deuces.